Your trade, Liza, is advising on geopolitical risk. You heard Tyler's reporting there. How much is this about managing expectations versus getting something definitive from this administration today on what has been agreed and what will be agreed in the weeks to come?
Right. Good morning, Ed and Caroline. It's nice to be on with you. Yeah. Secretary Scott Bessent has messaged this as a maximum pressure campaign. So they're trying to ratchet up the pressure and get more concessions from U.S. trading partners. It does seem that by kicking the deadline back to August 1st, they are needing more political wins. They need more deals in order to make this look like more of a success. But what I think markets may be missing at the moment is that there is another big chapter in President Trump's trade agenda kind of looming in the background, and that's the sectoral tariffs. So, of course, what we're all obsessing about right now is the reciprocal tariffs. And there's a lot of uncertainty. The uncertainty keeps extending, and the U.S. courts are raising more questions about the legality of these reciprocal tariffs. But by contrast, the Department of Commerce, meanwhile, is undertaking these investigations to lay the groundwork for sectoral tariffs. These are the Section 232 investigations into things like semiconductors and pharma and various metals and a whole host of other key things. And if you'll recall, this investigation, Commerce has this authority in terms of looking at the national security vulnerability. So that's still looming. It's been delayed by these trade negotiations, but it's still coming, and it's arguably a lot more consequential than
Liza,
reciprocal tariffs.
A lot of that directly relates to China, right? And the latest headline is the president warning an additional 10% tariff in response to anti-American policies, as he calls them, from BRICS nations. But if you consider the BRICS nations and where this administration is focused, all of these different negotiations happen in parallel. Do you think China gets more time and is more of a priority than anyone else?
Yeah, there's a few trade partners that are sort of on a separate track, and they're not really part of these ongoing reciprocal tariff negotiations. China, Canada, and Mexico. You know, Canada and Mexico, of course, because they're USMCA trade partners, and they're on a separate track. But China, because the president has been saying that he has a deal already with China. This is coming out of the London trade talks. What you really have there is more of just a fragile truce that's centered around rare earths and export controls. And so it's very fragile. I think the administration would like to keep the door open to further trade talks and maybe some kind of a phase 2 with China. They would like to see China open up more. But of course, it takes two to tango. And China has consistently disappointed U.S. trade negotiators. And what Washington may try to offer towards Beijing as concessions or conciliatory diplomatic moves will be read in Beijing as softness and weakness, and they will push harder for more concessions. So I think there's a lot of fragility here, and either side could tip over this apple cart in terms of this kind of fragile U.S.-China truce.
Oh, apple cart takes me exactly where I want to go, because for us in the world of technology, Apple has been the front line of fire when it comes to tariff exposure. We also think of the chip, the semiconductor names, and you mentioned Section 232. All of this, give us the advice you're giving leadership at corporate America right now. Do you navigate tariffs like this, or do you ultimately take the takeaway is build more in America and signal more rather than see the realities of where tariffs go in the next month or week?
I think with China, you have to have a China strategy, and that has to take the medium and long term into account. It has to take into account China's track record and the track record over decades, really, of U.S.-China trade negotiations eventually disappointing and breaking down. So I think you kind of have to bake that in. What remains to be seen is how seriously the administration will back up President Trump's desire to reindustrialize here in the United States. There's some areas where this sort of conflict among goals is quite striking. For one thing, the U.S. needs a strategy on rare earths. I think the U.S. dependency on China for rare earths and permanent magnets has become really a hot topic and that everyone's tracking now. But we still don't have, the U.S. still doesn't have a strategy to deal with the lack of demand, really. And what you saw in the big, beautiful bill over the weekend was there had been some measures in place, on the green energy side to put more funding towards solar and wind power that would have created more sustainable demand for the offtake of these nascent rare earth projects. That was stripped out of the bill, unfortunately. So I think you need to see more, an array of support beyond tariffs to strategies to reindustrializing in the United States.